Hi, I'm Deb and Gino from My Wired Style, and I'm really happy to have a chance today to talk to you a little bit about teamwork using wired styles. Let's face it, if you spend any length of time in a confined space with any other individual, generally we'll be able to see the differences pretty quickly, right? Well, let me share a little bit of my background, my corporate background, and I think what you'll come away with, well, at least I hope you will, is a really good idea on how we can use our strengths, gifts, and talents in a lot more complementary way. So, part of my responsibilities in the past in my corporate life was to fly all around the world and create subsidiary offices in all these different countries, which today service customers, I think, in more than 80 countries. So, whether I was in Japan, Hong Kong, Brazil, Italy, Germany, France, the Netherlands, you name it, been there, done that. But most importantly, there were common threads, common denominators, if you will, that happened throughout each of those countries. And that common denominator is people. So, whether they spoke French or Swahili, the bottom line is each of us were wired with certain gifts and talents and strengths that, if we use them and use them well, it just allowed us to accelerate our own progress and, of course, the progress of the business as well. Let's talk a little bit about a startup project. So, when we would start up an office, what would happen is we'd have to organize things like hiring people, finding real estate, making sure build out was done. How about creating training programs, making sure computer equipment, telephonic equipment got there? How about making sure that folks got trained, that they knew what the corporate vision and mission were? They knew how to really satisfy customers, that sales folks had everything they needed to go out there and really sell those products and services well. How about distribution, making sure the distribution was firing on all cylinders and that customer orders were getting turned around very quickly? Well, doing that in another country can be somewhat problematic. Different laws, different regulations, different rules. But I didn't need to be the expert in each of those areas. You see, here's what would have happened. Had I needed to develop that expertise, if I needed to become, a chief, financial officer or a CPA in order to open up that office, we would have waited an awful long time for that office to open up. So what did we do? That's right, we leveraged the strengths of the other people on the team. Now, here's the thing. Now, for those of you who are very analytical in nature, I love you guys and gals. You're really amazing. You're great at what you do, and frankly, we couldn't live without you. But when someone presents me with a spreadsheet, my eyes are glazing over in my head. It's just not my area of strength. It's not the thing I'm most comfortable with. I can do it, but it's just not my, hot button. It's not something that really excites me. But when we're opening up a subsidiary office, just like when you might be working on a project, there are going to be times where you need someone who can put those spreadsheets together, who can give you some good analytical advice on how the budget's rolling out, where there are areas of vulnerability, where there are even areas of opportunity. See, what happens is oftentimes we look at the differences and see how they separate us, see how they could potentially cause us harm, see how they could maybe sabotage a project. But that's a mindset. That's not the reality. The reality is that if I'm great at getting things done and making quick decisions, and you're great at analyzing information, you tee me up the information and use your strength, and I'll use my strength of making a great decision. Fair enough? Now let's talk about those folks who are very supportive in nature. What you're going to learn today is a little bit about DIS&C, disc wired styles. So in disc, if you think of it in these terms, think of a big circle, and the top half of the circle is everybody who's very outgoing. Bottom half of the circle is everybody who's more reserved. So here's an example. You walk in an elevator. I live in New York. I go to New York City quite often. So when I go into an elevator, I'm the type of person where I'm kind of looking at each other, sort of giving them a mental fist bump as I walk in the elevator. Most folks are in the elevator like this. That's right, they're looking at their shoes, or maybe they're looking at the numbers change. They're pretty predictable, you know what the next number is going to be. But they're more reserved in nature, and that's fine. It's just how they're wired. On the other hand, there are some people that are very task-oriented, and some people that are very people-oriented. Here's a test. If you're planning to go on vacation with your family, are you worried about who you're going to see, who you'll be with, what types of fun you'll have? Or are you more worried about creating a list so that you don't forget to pack anything? And you want to look at your time schedules and you want to make sure that everything is lined up perfectly so that you can have a good time. Both approaches are great. The only difference is one is coming at it through the lens of their people focus, the other through their task focus. So let's get back to work teams. If you think of it in terms of work teams, there are those of us on the team who are amazingly supportive. That's that S-wired person. S-wired folks, they have this innate ability to be supportive, creative, follow amazing patterns, get things done, get along with everyone. They are the backbone, frankly, of so many businesses. They are more in the background, but man, oh man, they are like that sort of silent secret weapon that is there to open up the office on time, closes it on time, and during the time in between does everything that they could possibly do to support that team really well. The value they bring to the team is they are the go-to person to make sure that whatever support services are needed for those of you who are maybe more outgoing in nature, let's say sales, for example, that you have everything you need. They are the people that you want on your customer services line because they are amazing at servicing customers. They make each customer feel special, happy, satisfied. They will go to the nth degree to make someone happy. They're really good at trying to diffuse conflict. They don't like conflict. S-wired folks like for it to be a very harmonious environment. Well, that's kind of nice. They're the people that remember whose birthday it is in the office. They're the folks that make sure that if it's a special celebration that someone's brought in donuts or coffee or something special. Those folks that are sort of the silent heroes of an organization are the ones that make a difference. Those are the people you probably gravitate towards asking help from over and over and over again. So, S-wired folks play in a really important role in any project, business, or opportunity that you might have, in as much as you need to get things done, and they are the folks to help you get it done, and in a really great way. Now let's talk about C-wired folks. C-wired folks have this really strong ability to analyze information and analyze it in amazing ways. C-wired folks are great at creating logical order out of data. So whether it's spreadsheets or it's information that needed to be gathered, really great at research work. They're the type of folks that are very detail-oriented, so they think and speak in terms of detail. I have a daughter who has some C-wiring too, and when I say to her, she'll say to me, when are we leaving? And if I say soon, that doesn't cut it for her. I need to tell her when we're leaving. So I have to say, okay, honey, we're leaving at 8:35 a.m. That speaks our language. The same is true in the office. If you're dealing with someone who's very C-wired and they ask you a direct question and you don't give them a factual answer, instead you give them a gut feel answer or a seat of the pants answer, you know what happens? They don't necessarily understand you so well, so they're going to ask a follow-up question, and you're going to think, why the heck are they asking me that question? I just told them. Because you didn't speak their language. Their language is facts and figures, data. Think in terms of data. Now let's talk about I-wired folks. I-wired folks are those amazing people who can make an instant connection with anyone. Generally, you're going to find I-wired folks in sales. Why? Well, because they can make instant connections. They are really strong at walking into a room and commanding attention. Now, sometimes that could be a little annoying, let's face it, just like being really great at spreadsheets can be annoying if it's not something you like, or being someone who's very quiet and reserved if you're not may seem annoying. But let me tell you about I-wired folks. They are the ones that make sales happen. Sorry. Because of their natural outgoing ability, they have this way of connecting with your client in a way that if you are D-wired, you'd really struggle hard to do, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The I-wired folks in your team, they're the folks that you want to put out front. They're the folks that when you're having a sales event or a company picnic or barbecue or gosh, just even an open house for clients to come in and see your business. They're the ones you want to have in there, and they're the ones you want to have out front speaking, because they are the ones that get that attention of that client really quickly, and they're very endearing, and they are really a lot of fun to be with, frankly. And let's face it, if you're in any type of business, having a good time kind of helps. D-wired folks. Let's talk about those D-wired folks. D-wired folks are the type of people that when they walk in the room, you think, what are they angry at? Truly, I know for a fact because I am dewired. What happens is we're very serious people typically. We are the type of person that, well, we want to get things done and we want to get them done quickly. So as we're walking into the room, the reason we have that pained look on our face, it's not because we're angry. It's because we're already thinking a few steps ahead of what we need to do next, what we need to accomplish next. D-wired folks are really excellent at making great decisions, making quick decisions. Well, sometimes they're not so great, but most times they are. D-wired folks are also very direct. So when you want to get something done quickly, the D-wired person is your go-to person. Let me give you an example. If, God forbid, there was sort of a fire in the movie theater as you're sitting there, the D-wired person is the person who's going to get up and start barking out orders without even being told to do so. It happens very naturally for them. It's just how they're wired. They see what needs to be done and they share it with the world immediately. So that directness can be a good thing. It can also rub you the wrong way because D-wired folks at the end of the day are very task-oriented. So generally they're more interested in getting things done than how people feel. And that of course can be a problem. But here's the thing you're going to learn. What you're going to learn in the material today is how much of what each of you bring to the table, to your project, to your work, to your team, do the rest of your teammates need? Does that project need? How much of you does it need? And more importantly, how much of them does it need, and do you need as well? See, you're not expected to bring to the table everything. You're only expected to bring to the table your thing and to do it in a way that is excellent, that is world class, that builds businesses, that makes projects happen, that builds on success, that helps that team win, that helps that team get it over the goal line. So just like when I was in another country, I couldn't possibly do all of it by myself. We had a whole team of folks that brought their specialty to that project. I would never want to be the head of computers, nor would they want me to be. I would never dream of being the head of distribution. It's not my area of expertise. But man, oh man, when those folks stepped up to the plate with their strengths in an amazing way, we were able to accomplish things that no one thought was possible. And you want to know something? The exact same thing is true for you and your team. So, what's today's lesson? That's right. Understand how you're wired. What are your strengths? What are your natural talents? Number two, understand how the rest of the folks on your team are wired. What are their strengths and natural talents? Number three, make sure that in your project work and your day-to-day business activities, you're using your strengths. And instead of looking at the strengths of other people and not understanding why they're not quite aligned with yours, realize they're not supposed to be aligned. They are supposed to be complementary to yours. And if you use it that way, now you're cooking.